featuring Gisela and myself, Patrick. So we had some technical difficulties at the beginning. But before we start the Firebase, I want to give a little background on how we got here and why we chose to talk about Firebase. I'm going to take us back in time a bit. A long time ago, like 2 months ago, we were at a place we like to call home, the Dev Center, of course. And while we were there, Jen, Ray, and Brian decided we should start a new app for the Dev Center. We have Gisela here, who's an Android developer. I'm an iOS developer. So we thought it would be fun if we started a new project, and this project would help people get back in shape after the COVID layoff. We were getting a little complacent, so we thought it was time to get fit, and that's what led to Get Fit. Brian came up with the name. It's a good name. And this project was going great, and so great even that it was suggested that we do a brown bag. And we were very nervous about doing a brown bag. We weren't sure if we were ready for it. Right. But then our fearless Scrum Master, Jen, encouraged us and told us we could do it. And so we accepted. We accepted.
Did she encourage us multiple times?
Oh, so many times. So many Slack messages. Mm-hmm. But she's persistent. She's good at her job. So we said, okay, we'll do it. We may complain a little bit. But then we're like, okay, what should we talk about? Because we could focus on the iOS side of things. We could focus on the Android. And then a wise man, Ray Hunter, who's in the audience today, said, how about you guys talk about something that developers from all practices could benefit from, rather than just going the Android route or the iOS route. And that led to Firebase. Firebase, it's a product by Google, and it's cross-platform. If you're an Android developer, you can use it. iOS developer, web developer. Also, if you have a Unity app, you can connect that to it. So I'll just talk about why we chose Firebase. We are not, Gisela and I are not back-end developers. We're front-end developers, so we needed a back-end, and Firebase helps us with that. And we also needed a way to authenticate users. And another perk is that it's free up until a certain point. Another thing we wanted to do as well was implement their cloud functions for push notifications. And there's other services out there like AWS, for example, that does a lot of these similar things. But I used that recently and thought it might be nice to have a change. And one of the things I found out is it also has really good documentation. I thought better than AWS personally. Great YouTube videos to teach you about new things and help you get started. So in our GetFit project, we were able to get user authentication, and we're also able to store user data to their Firestore database. We weren't able to get the cloud functions implemented. Unfortunately, /fortunately, Gisela and I were placed on with a client, and I'm not surprised because, as Brian always says, we decided to codify it. It's Brian's law. Once you start a Dev Center project, you get placed with a client. So yeah, those are wise words. If you can't tell, we did have a lot of fun with this project. We didn't complain that much. So let's dive into Firebase. See if I can be able to do that here. So first we're going to create a Firebase project. I'm going to give a little tour of the console, and then I'm going to show you how to add an app to a Firebase project. And then I'm going to pass the mic over to Gisela, who's got a really fun app that she made that uses Firebase. So let's jump into it. Okay, boom. So this is the landing page. You first sign in with your Gmail address. I got my SCG email here. And let's start a new project. Super easy. My computer's lagging a little bit. That's okay. Demo 2. And it's going to ask us if we want to enable Google Analytics for this project. I'll show you what this is in a little bit. We'll say yes. We'll select Patrick Ridd. And here we go. We're creating our project. Super simple. So those Google Analytics, they're pretty fun because they'll show you how many daily users you have, their retention rate, and even if you have like in-app purchases, it'll show you how much money you made that day, shows you how many crashes you had, things like that. So once we create our project, we're in demo 2. On the left panel, these are all the different products and services that you can integrate into your Firebase project. So like I said earlier, we were able to get the authentication done, and also we implemented the Firestore database. There's 2 different databases you can use. I've used this real-time database in the past. This Firestore is their newer database, and it's supposedly quicker and more intuitive, so we thought, let's give it a try. But if you are going to start your own Firebase project and you're not sure which one you want to choose, you can actually come to their, again, great documentation, and you can do a little questionnaire and they'll tell you which one is right for you. Again, we are eventually going to do the cloud functions at some point. So if we were going to do that, we just tap into functions and you have access to the documentation here. You have an intro video, which usually they have like a full playlist on each product just to help you get it figured out. And I think Gisela will be going into the documentation a little bit later, so I don't want to spend too much time. But as you can see here, if you're going to choose this real-time database, you got Get Started for iOS, Android, Web, Admin, REST, C++, etc. So everyone can use it.
We also use remote.
Oh, that's right. So remote config, Gisela and I, we worked at the same client, Bonneville, and they use remote config, which is, they use it for their advertisements. So how this works is there's an endpoint that you can hit, and sometimes they needed to change their advertisements on the fly so they could hurry and go change the advertisement, and the app is already set up to hit this endpoint. And rather than going through the process of changing it in app, where you might need to do like a regression test and spend all this time getting it through release, you can just update it here and super quick. So we might have to figure out how we're going to put that into GetFit.
When we advertise with GetFit.
That's right. But we're going to go back to the home screen here. This is a project that Gisela created. She has her Android app already connected. There's 1 daily active user. That was the analytics I was talking about earlier. It's a pretty popular app. Let's say you want to add a new app. You can add iOS, web, Unity. So we're just going to go through the iOS and close this. This is client stuff. Okay, so I have my Xcode project right here. The first thing that Firebase needs for me to connect to Firebase is the bundle identifier. So we got that right here. I'll try to do this as quick as I can. It's a really simple process. So we register. Now we need to download this Google Service info.plist. Oh, I got so many in there already. And then I'm just going to put it over here. Boom. So Apple already provides an info.plist here. This is Google's to help us connect to Firebase. Next, we need to add the Firebase SDK. And the way iOS does this, there's a bunch of different ways you could do it, but through this little tutorial, they want us to use CocoaPods, which is a dependency manager. Oops, let me get into, so I'm going to create our pod file. There it is. And we're going to put our pod in here. Save the pod file, and then we're going to install. Boom. We got all these new libraries. And also something that CocoaPods does is it creates this workspace that we have to use for, this is just for iOS, but this process is very similar in the Android, and I'm assuming web. Close this screen. Since that's loaded up, we are just going to initialize by adding the Firebase library. And our app delegate. Okay, Firebase app.configure. Boom. And that's all, folks.
You're all set.
So there's the iOS app. So we're connected, the same one that Gisela is. And from there, I'm going to pass the mic over. Oh, build success. So that's a good sign. I'm going to pass it over to Gisela. So I'm just going to not share my screen.
Thank you. And just to resize a little bit. Okay, well, as Patrick mentioned, I made a little demo app. Even though we already had an app, we had GetFit. in which we integrated with Firebase and we did the authentication and we used Firestore. But I built that like 3 months ago or 4 months ago, and I could not remember what I did, even though it's pretty simple. I'm like, I don't know. So I decided, let's start over again, and I'll make like a really super simple app that like very simply shows authentication, very simply shows Firestore. I wanted to have something that kind of fit with our theme of we didn't start the Firebase. And yeah, so that's why I went with a demo app. What Patrick showed you for registering the iOS app with the project is done very similarly in Android. So he had the .plist file that he downloaded and put into his project. In Android, the equivalent to that is this Google services.json. It's just a JSON config file. Also, the Firebase instructions, just like with iOS, it just gave me a really simple step-by-step of how to call the dependencies I needed in Android's build tool, which is Gradle, and also to pull in the plugin. Patrick did something very similar. I don't remember what it's called. You imported, right?
Oh, yeah, with Cocoa Pods?
Yeah, or you had to add a line somewhere.
Oh,
Anyway.
yeah.
So this is kind of the equivalent. So I went ahead and did that before our presentation. So what I'm saying is what Patrick just showed you, I did basically the same thing for Android. And then the first thing I wanted to implement was authenticating a user. In GitFit, we chose, or I'm going to go in the Firebase project. There are different ways that you can use Firebase to do user authentication. If we go to add new provider, you can see different choices here. For GitFit, we implemented the username and password provider, or not provider, native provider, yeah. For our demo app, I decided to go with Google Sign-In, not because I'm in love with Google, it's kind of the opposite. I don't know if there's.
Even though we're selling Firebase
right
now.
Firebase is great, but if there's going to be any kind of snag or hang up, it's from Google. So I have a love-hate, mostly hate relationship with Google. I didn't mean to talk about that today, but I was brave and decided to do Google Sign-In in our app today. So I would have clicked this button and it took me to some instructions, which I followed. To find those instructions, I'm just going to demonstrate my little method of using the documentation. The documentation is good, like what Patrick said. So right at the top, we could go to the docs. And what I like to do is just search in the search box. So I probably searched for something like authenticate with Google Android. And right at the top was my roadmap, which was almost really good because, like I said, it's Google. Google wrote this. So yeah. Okay. No, it's good. It's good enough. So here,
You've got Java and Kotlin there.
yes. Okay, here's what I'm looking for on the left. So in the left sidebar, the documentation will, you can find what platform you're working with and look for your information that way. And then for Android, it gives us our code snippets and we can use either Java or Kotlin. So that's very nice. So anyway, I followed these instructions and now I will go back to Firebase to our project and you can actually manage your users. So far, it shows that I've signed in with my personal Gmail and my husband's also from a different device. And when you log into the app for the first time, you can see the user show up. So I'm just going to do that right now. I'm going to sign in with, oh, please work. Okay, yay. Like, don't not work. I'm going to use my STG address. And I'm in, and here I'm going to refresh in my project. And here I am, a new user.
Nice.
And I even have a unique ID, which we used both in GitFit and also in this demo app. Patrick and I used the unique identifier provided by the Authentication to uniquely identify the users and connect us to our data on the back end. So the app, the super simple app is actually a Mad Libs. I was actually going to load this.
Oh, you're showing out the sign out function there.
Yeah, I just signed out. The documentation told me how to sign out also. It's pretty easy. I think it was something like current user.signout of Google, something like that. If anyone wants to see it, I'll show it. I'm going to sign in with my personal. So it loaded words. Where did those words come from? Those words came from, in my project, I'll go to Firestore Database. Okay, actually, here's a good moment to pause and talk about the Firestore Database is a NoSQL database as opposed to a relational database. Before we did the GitFed project, I did not know what a NoSQL database was. So I learned through the videos and stuff. It's kind of not the point of our presentation to explain NoSQL database, but the way Firestore, I don't know if this is like their personal terminology. What do you think? Collections and documents?
I'm not too certain either.
I think that's specific to Firebase and not just any NoSQL database. A collection is kind of analogous to a table in a relational database. A document would be a record. One key difference between a relational database and a NoSQL database is that a record, different individual records can be made up of any different configuration of fields. So it doesn't always have to be, like this one document has 9 fields of type string, but I could make another document that's got other fields of type integer or maps or arrays. So it can be different.
You update that word 9 or?
I can update the word. Yeah, that's a good point. So I could edit from our project, which I'll do right now. Let's see. Let's do partner for Patrick.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a verb too. Partner.
Was it supposed to be a verb?
Yeah, but that works. Partner up.
Oh yeah,
know.
partner. Sure. Yeah. Okay. So now how do I refresh? I'm going to refresh by signing out and signing back in because it's not a complicated app. That's just what I have to do. What was it? My personal name. Thank you.
Partner.
There it is.
There it is.
Okay. And then should I edit one? Well, I need to save it. Okay. So the way I set up my Mad Libs app is we fill out these words and then hit save, and then you get to see the completed result of the Mad Lib. Are we doing that? We're doing that.
Yeah.
We're doing that.
Oh yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we should have them help us out.
Yeah. Like right now? Or, okay.
Whatever you have. I don't want to
So
take away from what you want to do right now.
I don't know what I want to do right now. So there's the result. There we go.
We'll start a new one though.
We'll start a new one. Okay. But here's my delete button. Oh, how did I even save the data? How did I know how to do this? Again, I went to the documentation and I typed in something like how to write data to Firestore. And there, add data to Cloud Firestore. I most likely searched for, I didn't have to search very hard. So here's a nice code snippet to tell me how to write data, and I can look for the platform that I need. I chose Android. This stuff made it into my code. So I'm going to delete, but first let's go back to the project and we can watch this get deleted, right? So delete. Oh, am I really, really sure? Yes. Yes, I'm sure. Okay. Look,
Log on.
it went away. Oh my gosh. Is it time to make another one?
Yeah, let's do
All right.
another one. Do you guys have a verb? Run.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. Noun, anyone?
Camel.
Nice. Thank you. If anyone's contributing online, I actually can't see you. I don't mean to be
You guys wanna
unfair.
chat?
Thank you, Jen. Okay, Jen's watching. We need an adverb. Beautifully. We'll do it. Okay.
So I need an English lesson.
I don't know if I can spell while I also present, but mine works. Thank you. Oh my gosh. An ing word, guys.
Laughing.
Thank you. Another ing word.
Playing,
Right. Oh, what should I do? Crying or playing? I'll do playing.
crying. I'm crying because you did it.
Who's even talking? Two more. One. Thank you.
Drink.
All right. I like it. That sounds like skulls.
All right, so we just created the chorus.
Yeah.
All right,
created the
I guess we all
chorus.
have to sing it.
We're gonna sing it, and we also get to see it appear in our project, which is kind of awesome. Are we ready?
Let's do it.
Okay.
We didn't run the camel. It was beautifully laughing since the world's been crying. We didn't play the car. No, we didn't jump it, but we tried to drink it. Everyone.
So good.
Oh my god.
And that concludes, and we want to thank you
Oh, excuse me.
for starting the Firebase with us.
Thank you. Oh. Oh.
Great.
Boom.
We're out of here, huh?
So thanks, guys. We'll see you later. Questions?
Oh yeah, questions, right. Oh,
That's all we wanted.
that was really cute.
And thanks for sticking around. We had some technical difficulties,
True.
but we figured it out.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan, for figuring that out.
I have a question. When was Firebase created, and is it used in many applications today?
I'm not sure. Oh, yeah. So the question was, when was Firebase created, and is it used often in other applications? I am not too sure about the inception of Firebase. Good thing is we can Google that too. It's a Google product, so it should be on there. I would say the client I'm working for right now, Expert Voice, uses it, not for storing data, but for like dynamic links. And the client we worked for, Bonneville, was using it for specifically remote config. So they may not use it necessarily for the database. I'm not sure how pervasive it is in the industry and storing them to the database, but it does seem like there's a lot of different products that are useful that they may want to integrate, like some of the analytics tools. But that's a great question.
So yeah, it's really good to be able to track under the hood how the app is being used, if it's crashing, how people are storing data. Is it kind of like an analytics tool at its core?
I think it's part of it. I don't know if it's at its core. The things that Gisela and I were interested in specifically was the user authentication and then having a back end.
Yeah.
So and then all this other stuff was just kind of bonus. And the cloud functions made sense to us because we needed a way to deliver push notifications.
Are we still presenting? I just forgot to show the back end for GitFit. It's just another way we organize their data. So the tab was open, so I just wanted to show it.
Steps were those?
I don't know. We don't know who these users are, and that's good,
Yeah.
right?
Not
This is supposed to
necessary.
be private. They might all be Brian. I don't know. Maybe not.
Sorry, I probably didn't answer your question
No, you did.
completely, but
You did. So, Patrick, just to add on to what Firebase actually was acquired by the third-party company. This analytics was actually added later. That's a lot of developers are using it because it's a great way to have a backend. So with all these developers using Firebase, Google was like, hey, we'll buy you some crazy amount, billions of dollars, and so they got bought out and incorporated. And then they added things like analytics, Crash Analytics was another company that got purchased with this. The other thing too that's pretty interesting about Firebase is Firebase did push notifications. Google had and Google ended up rolling their stuff into Firebase for push notifications. And then now you're starting to see like machine learning test labs and those things come into those so they're really good. But there's a lot of companies that use, I would say almost every client or project that I work on usually will have some sort of look into Firebase, whether it's push notifications, probably by far the most that companies will use as a minimum. The other one would be the analytics, and then a lot of people jump on the Crash Analytics too, because to just kind of manage and monitor and check the crashes. It's a great way for developers to go in and look at certain things, and you don't have to have access to like where you're deploying your applications. For example, you don't have access to iOS to test flights and like that. You can get in here and pull that information. And then two, you have all access to like functions and databases, you know, the whole slew of analytics stuff like convert important to the powers that be. So yeah, there's great things in here that you can use for even monitoring. There's real-time monitoring if you look at the analytics real time. Sometimes as we roll products out, we look at the real-time analytics to see what's currently happening around the world. Really has some amazing features.
thanks, Ray.
Yeah.
Like that Sly said, he's a wise man. We should pull that back up.
Very, very wise. Yeah.
We should have pulled that up while I was talking.
Oh.
I haven't slept since 2011.
I did have one question for
There it is.
it's two parts. What was one thing that you liked about Firebase, and what's one thing that you disliked about Firebase, or something that you stand? That question's for both.
Okay, I like the documentation.
Mhm.
And you can't use the same thing.
I don't think.
Not? Oh my gosh.
She can't say documentation.
All right.
Well, that could be thing. You said you kind of didn't like it as much, so that could be something you didn't like.
Yeah, I don't know if it's the documentation or if it's Google. It's okay, my complaint about Google is they're constantly changing the way that things are done, right? But you have to you might have the most current documentation, and it's like you have to blend it with the next most recent documentation, which might have been for Java, and now, it's in the end, honestly, working with the GitFit project and even with this little demo app, whenever I got seriously stuck with a Google hit, some random miracle person on Stack Overflow saved me. I don't think it should be that way. I don't think it should depend on like that miracle angel person who like posts the exact piece of information I need. Just one example. I'll show you an example. I can remember where it is. So, okay. I had to create this Google sign-in options object, and I had to enter this ID token as a parameter. Okay, so the documentation told me exactly where to go. The most recent documentation told me where to go to get that token, and I did exactly what it said to do, and it wasn't the right token. And the miracle user on Stack Overflow had, showed me where to go instead. The token was actually inside this Google Services config file that was already in my project, but that's just not what the documentation said. And I find that really irritating. I'm recovered now, but I'm sure you've all like banged your head against the table, and it's Google. Do people know the Seinfeld reference? Newman, right? Newman? Yeah, that's me with Google. Like, Google.
Yeah. So that's what you didn't like?
That's what I did not like. What I did like is when it works, it's easy. I don't know. The rest of it was easy.
It is really intuitive, and I think I like the documentation. I like a good video, a good YouTube tutorial, and they have plenty of those. So that's something I liked. I guess I'm trying to really think of something I don't like. Maybe I wish it wasn't, not to just trash Google, but I'd like to, support other companies sometimes and not just use Google all the time. So maybe I wish it wasn't Google, but then it would be Amazon, and then I'm,
Right.
pick your poison. Pick your poison,
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I might have to get back to you on that one, Ray. I'm not really sure what I really dislike about it. I'm not sure. But yeah. Hey, Ron. But yeah, I think that's it, guys. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.